Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. Small choices repeated over time yield remarkable results, just as small investments grow into substantial wealth through compound interest. James Clear illustrates this idea with the story of British cycling. For decades, British cyclists had been mediocre, winning only a single Olympic gold medal in nearly a century and failing to win the Tour de France. Then, in 2003, Dave Brailsford was hired as the performance director. His approach was revolutionary, not because he introduced groundbreaking techniques, but because he committed to improving everything by just 1%. Brailsford optimized bike seats for comfort, ensured riders' hands were washed to avoid illness, and even painted the inside of the team truck white so that dust, which could harm bike maintenance, could be spotted easily. These changes seemed trivial, even laughable, but they compounded over time to produce astounding results. Within 5 years, British cyclists dominated the 2008 Beijing Olympics, winning 60% of the gold medals available in cycling. They continued their dominance, achieving repeated victories at the Olympics and winning the Tour de France multiple times. Such success did not emerge from dramatic changes, but from the accumulation of small, consistent improvements. This is the power of atomic habits, tiny actions that appear inconsequential, but when sustained, build a foundation for extraordinary outcomes. Clear explains that people often overestimate the importance of significant moments and underestimate the power of daily incremental improvements. It is easy to believe that major accomplishments require massive effort, but the truth is that small, consistent actions make the difference over time. Improving by just 1% each day may seem insignificant, but by the end of a year, those small gains compound to make you 37 times better. Conversely, allowing yourself to slip by 1% each day leads to a steady decline that eventually erodes progress entirely. However, the process of habit formation can feel discouraging because the results are not immediately visible. Clear describes this phenomenon as the plateau of latent potential. When you begin working on a new habit, there's often no visible progress, which can be frustrating. You might exercise regularly for a month and not see physical changes, or you might save a small amount of money every day but feel far from financial stability. These early stages of habit building test your patience and commitment, but the work you put in is not wasted. It's being stored, waiting for a tipping point. Clear compares this to heating an ice cube. Imagine a room slowly warming from 25 degrees to 31 degrees Fahrenheit. The ice remains unchanged until the temperature reaches 32 degrees, and then it begins to melt. The earlier effort was not futile, it was essential for reaching the breakthrough. Success, then, is not about making radical transformations overnight. It is about maintaining good habits long enough to cross the plateau of latent potential and unlock exponential growth. Clear notes that people often quit too early, frustrated by the lack of visible results. Yet, when you stay the course, the progress becomes undeniable. The seemingly small actions you took day after day, when compounded, yield results that others might mistake for overnight success. This principle applies to all areas of life, from fitness and finance to personal growth and relationships. Another essential idea Clear introduces is that habits are not just actions you perform. They shape your identity, and your identity shapes your habits. Changing your habits, therefore, starts with changing how you see yourself. Many people focus on the outcomes they want to achieve, such as losing weight or earning more money. Others focus on the processes they believe will help them achieve those outcomes, such as following a specific diet or creating a budget. But Clear argues that the most effective and lasting change occurs when you focus on identity. Instead of saying, "I want to lose weight," you might say, "I am the type of person who values health and fitness." Rather than setting a goal to write a book, you could decide, "I am a writer." This shift in perspective makes habits more sustainable because they align with your sense of self. When your actions reinforce your identity, they become a natural extension of who you are, rather than something you force yourself to do. For example, a person who identifies as a healthy individual naturally chooses nutritious foods and regular exercise, because those actions are consistent with their identity. On the other hand, someone who sees themselves as a procrastinator will continue to delay tasks because it aligns with their self-image. Clear explains that every action you take is a vote for the person you wish to become. No single action will define you, but as you repeatedly act in a certain way, you build evidence for your new identity. If you write every day, even for just a few minutes, you reinforce the belief that you are a writer. If you consistently choose to save money, you reinforce the identity of being financially responsible. Building better habits, then, is not just about behavior modification. It's about identity transformation. Clear encourages readers to start with who they want to become rather than what they want to achieve. This approach creates a powerful feedback loop. As your identity shapes your habits further solidify your identity. For example, a person who wants to become a runner doesn't need to set a goal to run a marathon immediately. Instead, they can start by putting on their running shoes and jogging for a few minutes each day. Over time, these small actions accumulate, and the individual begins to see themselves as a runner, which motivates them to continue. Clear emphasizes that this approach is far more effective than relying on willpower or motivation, which are often fleeting. When your habits are aligned with your identity, they become easier to sustain because they feel natural. This alignment also makes it easier to overcome obstacles and setbacks because you are not just pursuing a goal, you are embodying a new version of yourself. To build better habits, it's crucial to understand how habits work. Clear introduces the four-step process of habit formation: cue, craving, response, and reward. These steps form a loop that drives all of our behaviors. A cue triggers your brain to initiate a behavior. This could be something as simple as seeing a cookie on the counter, which serves as a cue to eat it. The craving is the motivational force behind the habit. It's not the cookie itself that you desire, but the feeling of satisfaction it provides. The response is the actual behavior you perform, such as reaching for the cookie and eating it. Finally, the reward is the benefit you gain from the behavior, such as a momentary sense of pleasure or comfort. This reward reinforces the habit loop, making it more likely that you will repeat the behavior in the future. Understanding this loop is essential for designing better habits and breaking bad ones. If you want to build a new habit, you need to make the cue obvious, the craving attractive, the response easy, and the reward satisfying. Conversely, if you want to break a bad habit, you need to make the cue invisible, the craving unattractive, the response difficult, and the reward unsatisfying. These principles form the foundation for the rest of the book, as Clear provides practical strategies for applying them to real-life situations. Clear's insights into habit formation are grounded in both scientific research and personal experience. He shares his own journey of rebuilding his life after a devastating injury in high school. Struck in the face by a baseball bat, Clear suffered multiple skull fractures and nearly lost his life. The recovery process was slow and challenging, but he began to rebuild his confidence by focusing on small, manageable habits. He made his bed every morning, kept his dorm room clean, and established a regular study routine. These seemingly insignificant actions gave him a sense of control and helped him regain his self-esteem. Over time, they compounded into larger achievements, such as excelling in academics, becoming a college athlete, and eventually building a successful business. The principles Clear outlines in this section apply universally, regardless of your goals or circumstances. Whether you want to improve your health, advance your career, or strengthen your relationships, the process is the same. By focusing on small, consistent actions and aligning them with your desired identity, you can create lasting change. Habits are not about achieving perfection, they are about making progress. They are the building blocks of a fulfilling and successful life. As you begin this journey, remember that the goal is not to achieve immediate results, but to commit to the process. Change is not linear, and progress often feels invisible in the early stages. But if you stay consistent and trust in the power of small habits, you will eventually reach a tipping point where the results become undeniable. This is the promise of atomic habits, the ability to create remarkable outcomes through the simple, consistent practice of small, positive actions. The journey to building better habits begins with awareness. If you don't recognize the cues that trigger your actions, you can't control them. This is why the first law of behavior change is to make it obvious. Habits are often so ingrained that they operate on autopilot. You brush your teeth without consciously thinking about it, pick up your phone the moment you feel bored, or snack while watching TV. These actions occur because they are tied to clear cues in your environment, even if you don't realize it. The key to changing your habits lies in becoming aware of these cues and designing them intentionally. James Clear illustrates this with a fascinating story of a doctor who identified an impending health crisis simply by observing his patient. The man didn't look right. His skin color and posture hinted at serious health problems. This ability to recognize subtle but meaningful cues enabled the doctor to save lives. Similarly, to change your habits, you must train yourself to recognize the cues that initiate them. Most of the time, these cues operate beneath the surface of your awareness, which is why bad habits often feel automatic. If you want to break a bad habit, you must learn to identify its triggers. If you want to build a new habit, you must create a clear and visible cue that initiates the behavior. One effective strategy is habit stacking, which involves linking a new habit to an existing one. For example, if you already brush your teeth every morning, you can attach a new habit, such as flossing, to that routine. After brushing your teeth, you might say, "I will floss one tooth." This small but deliberate action creates a clear sequence that makes the habit easy to remember. Over time, the new habit becomes part of your routine, as natural as the original behavior. Clear emphasizes the importance of specificity when creating new habits. Saying, "I want to exercise more," is too vague to prompt action. Instead, you should create an implementation intention. "I will exercise for 10 minutes at 7:00 a.m. in my living room." This level of detail eliminates ambiguity and increases the likelihood of follow-through. Clear explains that the brain craves clarity. The more specific you are about when, where, and how a habit will occur, the easier it is to execute. But making a habit obvious is not just about designing cues. It's also about shaping your environment to support your goals. Environment has a profound impact on behavior. If you want to eat healthier, placing a bowl of fresh fruit on your kitchen counter makes it more likely that you'll reach for an apple instead of a bag of chips hidden in the pantry. Conversely, if you want to stop a bad habit, you can design your environment to make the cues invisible. A smoker trying to quit might remove all lighters and ashtrays from their home, reducing the visual triggers that prompt the desire to smoke. The environment acts as a silent force, shaping your actions in powerful ways. Clear challenges the common belief that motivation is the driving force behind habit formation. While motivation can be useful, it is often unreliable and fleeting. Instead, he argues, your environment plays a much greater role in shaping your actions. If your environment is set up to make good habits obvious and bad habits invisible, you don't need to rely on willpower to make the right choices. The easier and more natural it is to perform a habit, the more likely you are to stick with it. For example, if you want to start journaling, keeping a notebook and pen on your bedside table makes it easy to write a few lines before bed. If the tools for a habit are out of sight or hard to access, the habit itself becomes harder to initiate. One of the most revealing aspects of Clear's insights is the role of self-control, or rather, the limits of it. Many people believe that resisting temptation is a matter of willpower, but research shows that those who exhibit strong self-control are often the ones who structure their environments to avoid temptations in the first place. For example, someone who consistently eats healthy meals likely does so because they stock their kitchen with nutritious options, not because they're resisting the temptation of junk food every time they open the fridge. Clear argues that by eliminating cues for bad habits and amplifying cues for good ones, you can create an environment where self-control becomes unnecessary. This principle extends beyond personal habits to broader social environments. The behaviors of those around us shape our actions in subtle but profound ways. Humans are deeply influenced by the social norms of their group. If everyone around you is engaging in a particular behavior, you are more likely to adopt it, whether it's exercising regularly or binge-watching TV. This is why it's crucial to surround yourself with people who exhibit the habits you want to adopt. If you join a running club, the social pressure to participate and the shared identity of being a runner will encourage you to stick with the habit. Clear also explains how to use habit cues to your advantage by associating them with specific behaviors. For example, if you struggle with focus, you might designate a particular chair in your home as your work chair. Every time you sit in that chair, you signal to your brain that it's time to work. By tying specific environments or objects to particular habits, you can create mental associations that make it easier to engage in desired behaviors. This technique, known as context-dependent memory, leverages the brain's ability to link actions to their environment. However, the process of making habits obvious also involves identifying and addressing the cues that lead to bad habits. Clear introduces the concept of pointing and calling, a technique used in safety-critical industries like aviation and railroads to increase awareness. Workers verbally identify potential risks, forcing themselves to acknowledge what they see. Similarly, you can use this technique to call attention to your habits. For example, if you tend to snack mindlessly while watching TV, you might say out loud, "I am reaching for a bag of chips." This simple act of pointing and calling disrupts the autopilot mode and makes you more aware of your behavior. Clear recounts a personal anecdote to illustrate the power of habit cues. He shares how, in his early attempts to develop a writing habit, he struggled with inconsistency. It wasn't until he created a specific writing cue, sitting down at the same desk at the same time each morning, that his habit took root. By associating a particular environment and time with the act of writing, he made the habit obvious and significantly increased his productivity. The first law, make it obvious, is about more than simply noticing your habits. It's about creating a world where good habits are hard to ignore and bad habits fade into the background. By becoming aware of the cues that drive your behavior, designing your environment to support positive actions, and aligning your habits with your surroundings, you set the stage for lasting change. In doing so, you take the first step toward building a life that reflects your best intentions. Once you've made your habits obvious, the next step is to make them attractive. Human behavior is driven by the brain's desire to maximize rewards and minimize effort. If a habit is pleasurable, engaging, or rewarding, you are far more likely to repeat it. Conversely, if it feels dull, difficult, or unrewarding, you are likely to avoid it. The second law of behavior change focuses on leveraging this innate tendency to your advantage by making habits so appealing that you naturally want to engage in them. James Clear explains that every habit is linked to a craving, but not always in the way we assume. It is not the action itself that we crave, but the feeling or result it provides. For instance, no one craves brushing their teeth, but they crave the feeling of a clean mouth. Similarly, it's not the act of checking social media that people find irresistible. It's the anticipation of connecting with others or discovering something new. Understanding this distinction allows you to design habits that tap into these deeper cravings. One powerful way to make a habit more attractive is by using the principle of temptation bundling. This involves pairing an action you want to do with something you already enjoy. For example, if you love watching Netflix but struggle to exercise, you might allow yourself to watch your favorite show only while walking on a treadmill. This approach transforms the habit from a chore into a rewarding experience, increasing the likelihood that you'll stick with it. By bundling temptations with desired behaviors, you harness the power of craving to reinforce positive habits. Clear emphasizes that cravings are not just individual, they are also shaped by our social environment. Humans are inherently social creatures, and we are deeply influenced by the behaviors of those around us. This is why it's easier to adopt habits that align with the norms of our group. If you spend time with friends who regularly exercise, you are more likely to view fitness as an attractive and normal part of life. On the other hand, if your social circle prioritizes drinking or overeating, those behaviors may seem more appealing. Clear calls this the imitation effect, where we unconsciously mirror the habits of the close, the many, and the powerful, the people we spend time with, the larger social groups we belong to, and those we admire or aspire to emulate. The role of family and friends in shaping habits cannot be overstated. Clear provides the example of his own upbringing, where his family valued education and self-discipline. This environment instilled habits of studying and hard work that he carried into adulthood. For someone trying to build better habits, the key is to surround yourself with people who exhibit the behaviors you want to adopt. By joining groups or communities that embody your desired habits, you align your identity with their norms. This alignment makes the habits feel natural and even enjoyable, rather than forced. Another way to make habits attractive is by reframing them. Many people struggle to adopt healthy habits because they focus on what they are giving up rather than what they are gaining. For example, someone trying to quit smoking might feel deprived of the stress relief they associate with cigarettes. Clear suggests reframing the habit by focusing on the positive aspects. I'm not giving up smoking. I'm gaining better health, more energy, and longer life. This mental shift transforms the habit from a sacrifice into an opportunity, making it more appealing. However, the inverse principle is just as important, making bad habits unattractive. Clear explains that bad habits persist because they are often associated with immediate pleasure, even if they have long-term negative consequences. To break a bad habit, you must disrupt the craving that drives it. This can be done by highlighting the downsides of the behavior in vivid detail. For example, if you want to stop eating junk food, you might focus on how it makes you feel sluggish, increases your risk of disease, or hinders your fitness goals. By making the habit less appealing, you reduce its grip on your behavior. One of the most insightful concepts in this section is the idea that every habit has an anticipation loop. The brain releases dopamine not only when you experience pleasure, but also in anticipation of it. This is why the build-up to an event, like planning a vacation or looking forward to a meal, often feels just as rewarding as the event itself. To leverage this, Clear suggests finding ways to make the anticipation of your habits more exciting. For example, if you're trying to build a habit of cooking at home, you might start by exploring new recipes or imagining how delicious your meals will taste. This sense of anticipation makes the habit more attractive and motivates you to follow through. Clear also explains how craving can work against us when it comes to bad habits. The anticipation of a reward can be so powerful that it overrides logic and long-term thinking. For example, the craving for the dopamine hit from checking your phone can distract you from more important tasks, even if you know it's unproductive. To counteract this, you need to make the craving less appealing by introducing friction. This might involve keeping your phone in another room while you work, or setting app limits that prevent overuse. By increasing the effort required to indulge the craving, you disrupt the habit loop and make it easier to focus on more productive behaviors. The second law, make it attractive, teaches us that habits are not formed in isolation. They are deeply intertwined with our emotions, social connections, and environment. By designing habits that appeal to our natural desires and reframing them in a positive light, we can make them irresistible. At the same time, by reducing the allure of bad habits, we can break free from their grip and create space for positive change. This is the power of attraction. It transforms habits from obligations into opportunities, paving the way for sustainable growth. Building habits is often perceived as an uphill battle, requiring discipline, motivation, and constant effort. But James Clear argues that the secret to sustaining habits lies not in sheer willpower, but in making them as effortless as possible. This is the essence of the third law: make it easy. Humans naturally gravitate toward the path of least resistance, so designing habits that align with this tendency ensures they become a seamless part of daily life. Clear introduces the idea that habits form through repetition, not perfection. Many people fall into the trap of thinking they must master a habit from the outset. They focus on the ideal result, running a marathon, writing a novel, or eating a perfect diet, rather than on simply showing up. But mastery is not the goal at the beginning. Instead, the focus should be on establishing a pattern of behavior. For instance, if you want to build a habit of going to the gym, your initial goal might simply be to put on your workout clothes and step into the gym, even if you leave after 5 minutes. This approach removes the pressure to perform perfectly and shifts the emphasis to building consistency. Clear shares an illuminating example of a man who lost over 100 pounds by committing to a simple rule. He would go to the gym every day, but he wasn't allowed to stay for more than 5 minutes. At first, this seemed counterproductive. How could such a brief visit lead to significant results? But over time, this small commitment established the identity of someone who exercised regularly. Once the habit was ingrained, he naturally began extending his workouts. The lesson here is clear. Starting small and focusing on consistency is far more effective than trying to achieve perfection from the beginning. Another powerful strategy for making habits easy is the 2-minute rule. This principle states that any habit can be scaled down to a version that takes 2 minutes or less. If you want to read more, commit to reading 1 page. If you want to run a marathon, start by tying your running shoes. These small actions may seem insignificant, but they serve as gateways to larger behaviors. By breaking habits down into their simplest components, you eliminate the friction that often prevents you from starting. Once you've begun, it's much easier to continue. Clear emphasizes that much of what we perceive as procrastination is simply a result of friction. If a behavior feels difficult, inconvenient, or overwhelming, we're likely to avoid it. This is why reducing friction is crucial for habit formation. For example, if you want to eat healthier, you might prepare meals in advance so that nutritious options are readily available. If you want to practice guitar, keeping the instrument out of its case and within easy reach makes it more likely that you'll pick it up. Conversely, increasing friction for bad habits can help break them. If you tend to watch too much TV, unplugging the device or placing the remote in another room makes the habit less convenient. Clear illustrates the power of reducing friction through the story of a Japanese train company. Faced with overcrowded trains, the company introduced platform attendants who gently nudged passengers into the trains to make the boarding process more efficient. This small change streamlined operations and demonstrated how even minor adjustments to reduce resistance can produce significant results. The same principle applies to habits. By designing an environment that removes obstacles and makes the desired behavior as easy as possible, you set yourself up for success. Automation is another powerful tool for simplifying habits. By outsourcing repetitive decisions to technology, you can create systems that execute desired behaviors without requiring conscious effort. For instance, setting up automatic transfers to a savings account ensures that you save money consistently without having to think about it. Similarly, using apps or reminders to schedule workouts or track habits reduces the cognitive load and increases the likelihood of follow-through. Automation turns good intentions into default actions, removing the need for constant decision-making. However, making habits easy is not just about reducing effort. It's also about building momentum. Clear introduces the concept of decisive moments, which are small choices that set the tone for the rest of the day. For example, deciding to go for a walk instead of scrolling on your phone might lead to a series of healthy behaviors, like preparing a nutritious meal or drinking more water. By focusing on these key moments and making them as effortless as possible, you create a cascade of positive outcomes. One of the most intriguing ideas in this section is the law of least effort. This principle states that people will naturally choose the option that requires the least amount of energy. For example, if a city installs bike lanes, more people will choose cycling over driving because it becomes the easier option. Clear encourages readers to apply this principle to their own lives by designing systems that make good habits the default choice. If you want to drink more water, keeping a bottle on your desk ensures it's always within reach. If you want to study more effectively, setting up a dedicated workspace free from distractions eliminates the effort of finding a suitable environment each time. Finally, Clear explains how to make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. He shares the story of Victor Hugo, who used an extreme form of this principle to finish writing The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Facing a tight deadline, Hugo locked away all his clothes to prevent himself from leaving the house. With no distractions, he had no choice but to focus on his writing. While this approach may seem drastic, it illustrates the power of commitment devices, tools or actions that lock you into a course of behavior. By creating systems that make it harder to deviate from your goals, you increase the likelihood of success. For example, signing up for a fitness class in advance commits you to attending, while canceling a subscription to a streaming service removes the temptation to binge-watch TV. The third law, make it easy, is a reminder that small adjustments can have a profound impact. By focusing on repetition over perfection, reducing friction, automating decisions, and designing your environment to support your goals, you create a world where good habits require minimal effort and bad habits fade away. This principle is not about making life effortless, but about channeling your energy into the actions that truly matter. When habits align with the path of least resistance, they become a natural and sustainable part of your daily life. The final step in creating habits that stick is to make them satisfying. Human behavior is heavily influenced by the anticipation of rewards and the experience of pleasure. When an action feels good, you are more likely to repeat it. Conversely, if a habit is unsatisfying or offers no immediate gratification, it becomes harder to maintain, even if it aligns with your long-term goals. This is the essence of the fourth law: make it satisfying. Habits are built on a feedback loop that involves four key stages: cue, craving, response, and reward. The reward is the critical piece that reinforces the behavior, signaling to your brain that the action was worthwhile and should be repeated in the future. Without this sense of satisfaction, the habit loop breaks down. This is why so many good habits, like eating healthy, exercising, or saving money, fail to stick. They often provide delayed rewards, while bad habits, such as overeating, procrastinating, or overspending, deliver instant gratification. To overcome this challenge, you need to close the feedback loop by finding ways to make good habits immediately satisfying. James Clear introduces the concept of the cardinal rule of behavior change. Behaviors that are immediately rewarded are repeated, and behaviors that are immediately punished are avoided. This principle explains why it's so easy to fall into bad habits. For example, eating a donut offers an immediate burst of pleasure, even though it may contribute to long-term health problems. On the other hand, going for a run might feel exhausting in the moment, even though it improves your fitness over time. The key to building good habits is to find ways to bring the long-term rewards into the present moment. One way to achieve this is through the use of reinforcement. Clear recounts the story of a woman who wanted to develop a habit of flossing. To make the habit more satisfying, she gave herself a small reward after flossing, such as enjoying a piece of her favorite chocolate. This immediate gratification made the habit more enjoyable and increased her likelihood of sticking with it. Over time, the act of flossing itself became satisfying as she began to associate it with clean, healthy teeth. This shift from extrinsic rewards to intrinsic satisfaction is a crucial part of habit formation. The same principle applies to other habits. If you want to exercise more, you might allow yourself to watch a favorite show only while working out on a stationary bike. If you're trying to save money, you could track your progress visually, such as by marking milestones on a savings chart. These small but tangible rewards provide the immediate satisfaction your brain craves, reinforcing the behavior and making it more likely to stick. Clear emphasizes the importance of tracking habits as a way to create satisfaction. The simple act of marking an X on a calendar or logging your progress in a journal can be surprisingly rewarding. This visual evidence of your achievements creates a sense of momentum and encourages you to maintain the streak. Clear shares the story of Jerry Seinfeld, who used this method to develop a habit of writing jokes daily. By placing an X on a calendar every day he wrote, Seinfeld created a visual chain that he didn't want to break. The power of this strategy lies in its simplicity. The longer the chain grows, the more motivated you are to keep it going. However, tracking habits is not just about creating satisfaction, it also provides accountability. When you see evidence of your progress, you are more likely to stay committed to your goals. This is especially true when combined with an accountability partner. Clear explains how sharing your goals with someone else can increase your commitment by adding an element of social pressure. For example, if you tell a friend that you'll wake up at 6 a.m. to work out, the fear of letting them down can serve as a powerful motivator. Some people even use financial stakes, such as donating money to a cause they dislike if they fail to meet their goals. These small but meaningful consequences create a sense of urgency and make it harder to skip your habits. The concept of accountability extends beyond individuals. In today's digital world, apps and platforms offer creative ways to make habits more satisfying. Fitness trackers, for example, gamify physical activity by awarding badges or celebrating milestones. These rewards tap into the brain's desire for recognition and achievement, providing a burst of satisfaction every time you reach a goal. Similarly, budgeting apps can make saving money more enjoyable by showing your progress in colorful graphs or offering small rewards for meeting savings targets. By combining habit tracking with built-in rewards, these tools make good habits feel immediately gratifying. Yet the fourth law is not only about reinforcing good habits, it's also about making bad habits unsatisfying. Clear explains that many bad habits persist because they are tied to immediate rewards, even if they have long-term costs. To break these habits, you need to create immediate consequences that outweigh the short-term pleasure. For instance, if you struggle with overspending, you might impose a rule where any unplanned purchase requires you to transfer an equivalent amount into a savings account. This creates an immediate penalty for impulsive behavior, making it less appealing. Clear also highlights the role of identity in creating satisfaction. When a habit aligns with your self-image, it becomes inherently rewarding. For example, someone who identifies as a reader feels a sense of pride and fulfillment every time they finish a book. This intrinsic satisfaction strengthens the habit and makes it easier to sustain. To leverage this principle, you can use affirmations or reminders that reinforce your desired identity. For example, after completing a workout, you might tell yourself, "I'm the type of person who values my health." Over time, this positive reinforcement creates a feedback loop that strengthens the habit. Finally, Clear addresses the concept of habit closing loops. He explains that humans have an innate desire for resolution, which is why unfinished tasks often linger in our minds. By completing a habit and experiencing the reward, you satisfy this desire for closure, creating a sense of accomplishment. This is why it's so important to define your habits clearly and ensure they have a clear endpoint. For instance, if your goal is to write more, you might set a target of writing 100 words per day. Achieving this specific goal provides a sense of closure and reinforces the habit. The fourth law, make it satisfying, is about leveraging the brain's reward system to create habits that are enjoyable and sustainable. By introducing immediate rewards, tracking progress, and aligning habits with your identity, you can build a positive feedback loop that reinforces good behavior. At the same time, by introducing immediate consequences for bad habits, you can break free from behaviors that hold you back. Ultimately, satisfaction is the glue that holds habits together. When you make habits rewarding, they become not just something you do, but something you enjoy. And that's what makes them last. Once you've laid the groundwork for building better habits, the question arises, how can you move beyond incremental improvement to achieve excellence? Advanced tactics for habit formation go beyond simply building good habits. They focus on optimizing, sustaining, and refining them so you can reach your full potential. These principles are not just about making progress. They're about understanding the nuances that elevate good performance into greatness. James Clear begins this section by exploring the role of talent. While habits and effort are crucial, it's undeniable that natural abilities and inclinations play a role in what we excel at. The key, Clear argues, is not to fight against your inherent strengths, but to align your habits with them. People are born with varying temperaments, skills, and predispositions, and those differences can give you an edge when pursuing the right habits. If you love numbers, for example, building a habit of budgeting or learning data analysis may feel more natural than someone with an artistic temperament. Recognizing these innate preferences allows you to channel your energy into areas where you are most likely to succeed. Clear introduces the concept of the Goldilocks rule, which states that habits are most satisfying and sustainable when they challenge you just enough to keep you engaged, but not so much that they overwhelm you. This principle is drawn from research on human motivation, which shows that people are most productive and happiest when working on tasks that are at the edge of their abilities. If a task is too easy, it becomes boring. If it's too difficult, it becomes discouraging. The sweet spot lies in a zone where the task pushes your limits just enough to stimulate growth. For example, a novice pianist might find joy in practicing a slightly more complex piece of music, while an experienced pianist might thrive on mastering a challenging concerto. To apply the Goldilocks rule, Clear suggests breaking down large goals into manageable milestones that progressively increase in difficulty. If you're learning to run, your first milestone might be completing a single kilometer without stopping. Once you achieve that, you can gradually increase the distance or speed. Each new milestone provides a sense of accomplishment while keeping the challenge alive. This gradual progression prevents stagnation and keeps you engaged, ensuring that your habits remain both rewarding and stimulating. Clear also addresses the inevitable plateaus that occur during long-term habit formation. Even with the best intentions, progress often slows or stalls over time. This phenomenon is natural and does not mean your habits are failing. To overcome plateaus, Clear emphasizes the importance of continuous refinement. He recounts the story of top athletes and performers who focus not just on practicing, but on deliberate practice. Identifying specific weaknesses, seeking feedback, and making incremental adjustments. This mindset shifts the focus from merely repeating a habit to improving its quality. In addition to refining habits, Clear highlights the importance of maintaining motivation over the long term. While motivation often spikes at the beginning of a new habit, sustaining it requires deeper strategies. One powerful approach is to tie your habits to a higher purpose. For example, someone who exercises not just to lose weight, but to set a positive example for their children may find it easier to stay committed. By connecting your habits to something larger than yourself, you infuse them with meaning, making them more compelling to sustain. Another advanced tactic involves understanding the risks of success. Clear warns that the better you become at a habit, the more likely you are to fall into complacency. Success can breed stagnation, as the initial drive to improve fades once you reach your goal. To counteract this, Clear recommends adopting a mindset of continuous improvement. Instead of settling for good enough, challenge yourself to find new ways to grow. This might mean learning a new skill, taking on a new challenge, or exploring a different aspect of the habit. For example, a successful entrepreneur might branch into a new industry or tackle a philanthropic project to reignite their passion and curiosity. Clear also explores the dark side of habits, particularly when they become so automatic that they lead to unintended consequences. While habits can create structure and efficiency, they can also lead to rigidity if left unchecked. For example, a person who is overly focused on productivity might neglect relationships or self-care. Clear advises regularly evaluating your habits to ensure they still align with your values and goals. This involves asking yourself whether the habits you've built are serving your long-term interests, or if they need to be adjusted. Flexibility and self-awareness are key to avoiding the trap of becoming a slave to your habits. The role of genetics and personality in habit formation is another critical aspect of this section. Clear explains that while anyone can improve in any area with effort, some people are naturally predisposed to excel in certain domains. Understanding your genetic strengths allows you to tailor your habits to fit your natural inclinations, making them more sustainable and enjoyable. For instance, someone with a high degree of curiosity might thrive in habits related to learning and exploration, while someone with a strong sense of discipline might excel in habits that require consistency and structure. By aligning your habits with your personality, you increase the likelihood of success and satisfaction. Clear concludes this section with a reminder that the goal of habit formation is not perfection, but progress. Even the most advanced tactics will not eliminate setbacks or challenges entirely. The key is to maintain a growth-oriented mindset, viewing every obstacle as an opportunity to learn and improve. When you focus on the process rather than the outcome, you free yourself from the pressure of perfection and allow yourself to enjoy the journey. Ultimately, the advanced tactics of habit formation are about fine-tuning your approach to align with your unique strengths, motivations, and circumstances. By finding your Goldilocks zone, embracing deliberate practice, and remaining adaptable, you can move beyond incremental improvement to achieve excellence. Habits are not just a tool for achieving goals, they are a framework for lifelong growth and fulfillment. At the end of the journey through habit formation, James Clear shifts focus from the mechanics of building habits to the overarching principles that make those habits endure. The culmination of all the strategies, making habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, leads to one ultimate truth. Your habits shape your identity, and your identity shapes your habits. This interplay is the foundation of lasting change. While the strategies and tactics outlined in the book can help you start and maintain habits, the true transformation happens when your habits align with the person you want to become. Clear emphasizes that results come from the systems you create, not the goals you set. Many people focus on outcomes, like losing weight, earning a certain amount of money, or reaching a milestone. However, focusing solely on outcomes often leads to fleeting success, because the habits that create those outcomes are not ingrained. It is not enough to achieve a goal. You must build systems that ensure you can sustain it. For example, losing 10 kilograms is a goal, but developing a habit of healthy eating and regular exercise is the system that makes that weight loss permanent. Clear reminds readers that success is not a destination, it's a process, a continuous cycle of refinement and improvement. The secret to results that last lies in building systems that work not just in the short term, but throughout your life. To achieve this, you must think of habits as part of a larger system of compound growth. Each small action you take, whether it's reading one page, saving a single dollar, or writing one sentence, adds to a larger body of work. Over time, these small actions compound to produce extraordinary outcomes. This perspective shifts the focus from short-term gains to long-term consistency. Clear encourages readers to trust in the process, even when the results are not immediately visible. The most impactful changes often take time to manifest, but persistence is the key to unlocking their full potential. Clear also reflects on the importance of flexibility in habit formation. While systems and routines provide structure, life is unpredictable, and rigid adherence to habits can sometimes become counterproductive. The goal is not to follow your habits perfectly, but to be resilient in the face of setbacks. Missing a single workout or indulging in an occasional treat does not undo your progress. What matters is your ability to return to your habits the next day. Clear stresses the importance of maintaining a mindset of self-compassion and focusing on consistency over perfection. Another key insight in the conclusion is the idea that habits are not just tools for self-improvement. They are a way to create meaning and purpose in life. By aligning your habits with your values, you create a life that reflects what matters most to you. For example, if you value relationships, building habits that nurture those connections, such as setting aside time for loved ones or practicing active listening, ensures that your actions align with your priorities. Similarly, if you value health, habits like exercising and eating well become expressions of that value. This alignment creates a sense of harmony between who you are and what you do. Clear reminds readers that the goal of habits is not to achieve perfection, but to become the best version of yourself. This version is not static. It evolves as you grow and adapt. As you continue to refine your habits, you are constantly reshaping your identity. Every small action you take is a vote for the person you want to become. Over time, these actions accumulate, and the gap between who you are and who you aspire to be narrows. This process of self-improvement is infinite, driven by the systems you create and the habits you sustain. The conclusion also touches on the importance of celebrating progress. While habits often emphasize the journey rather than the destination, taking time to acknowledge milestones and achievements reinforces the value of your efforts. These moments of reflection not only provide satisfaction, but also remind you of the impact of consistent action. Clear encourages readers to look back at how far they've come, using their progress as motivation to continue moving forward. Ultimately, the secret to results that last is to build a life around the principles of habit formation. By focusing on small, consistent actions, aligning habits with your identity, and creating systems that work for you, you can achieve meaningful and lasting change. Habits are not just a means to an end, they are the foundation of a fulfilling and purposeful life. As Clear closes the book, he leaves readers with a powerful message. The person you are today is the result of your habits, and the person you will become tomorrow depends on the habits you choose today. With the right systems and mindset, anything is possible. And that brings us to the end of this deep dive into Atomic Habits by James Clear. Throughout this journey, we've uncovered the transformative power of small, consistent actions. We've learned how habits are formed, how to break the ones that hold us back, and how to build systems that create lasting, meaningful change. The message of this book and this video is simple but profound. Every small habit you choose today is a step toward becoming the person you want to be. Whether it's reading one page, taking one deep breath, or choosing one healthy meal, each action is a vote for your future self. The key is to start small, stay consistent, and trust in the process. So as you move forward, ask yourself, what small habit can I start today? What one action can I take that aligns with the person I aspire to become? Remember, success isn't about making a giant leap. It's about taking one small step over and over again. If you found value in this video, consider hitting the like button, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who could use a fresh start. Let me know in the comments which habit you're working on, and together we can build a community of growth and progress. Thank you for spending your time here today, and until next time, keep building, keep growing, and keep becoming the best version of yourself.